Thank you so much, Zomwe, for putting this on and for introducing all of us here. By the way, you can call me Kaleba as well instead of Caleb if it's easier. And thanks to all of you for coming out. I think Sonali and Anuj, you guys have come from far away just to be here and give your thoughts, your insights on this panel. So much appreciated. And yeah, so for the next 40 minutes or so, we're just going to be going through and I'll be asking some questions about starting up in Mizoram, entrepreneurship here in the state, probably a bit of overlap as well with other parts of the region, Northeast in general, especially because Anuj and Sonali have a lot of experience outside as well. So they're investing, they're looking at founders who are in other parts of Northeast India. But the first question that I wanted to ask, and I think probably I'll go first with you, Anuj. So get ready with your answer here. I wanted to know, looking at Mizoram specifically, because I think you know a lot of founders here, what is it going to take to take this ecosystem here in Mizoram and actually turn it into a startup, a very strong startup hub in Northeast India? Like, I've spent a lot of time in Bengaluru, right? And that's like basically one of the top startup capitals in the entire country, if not the top startup capital of the country. In Northeast India, it's a little bit different, right? Assam is sort of the, you could say the Bengaluru of Northeast. Mizoram, I remember a couple of years ago doing a lot of research into Mizo startups. And I found it quite challenging to even get information, right? Because it was like everyone was sort of building on Instagram, it seemed like. Most of the startups had an Instagram account. They didn't have like a website. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to happen. And I wanted to know, what are some ways that this ecosystem can thrive and actually be on the radar as a startup hub in India?
Thank you. So thanks a lot, first of all, like coming here, like Chibai. And one of the amazing thing which I will say coming here, like, and because of like the understanding that we have got, like, is primarily, I will say, thanks to Jumoy and Philippi, like the whole ecosystem which is thriving in today. So I see Mizoram in a slightly more larger, different way, like which most of the so-called investors are kind of missing out, is we are talking about a state which is primarily the greenest state in entire Asia. We are talking about 88% green. It is far more greener than Bhutan. It is far more greener than even Sikkim and other places as well. And why I'm talking about like it's green and it is also unique is because so far Mizoram has, for whatever reason, has kept itself a little closed, but doesn't mean that it was not valuable. It was. And when we are talking about startup, there's lots of important history also which goes in back. So we are talking about startup in isolation. Today, just three, I will say, cities in India primarily owns 90% of the startups. And even the startup founders just come from 2 or 3 communities. It's not India. It's just 0.1% of Indian representation in startup, which is getting funded. So it's not India, which is like the best startup capital of the world because it's concentrated. So if we have to have some kind of a more larger kind of a growth possible, that's where what we do in Alcisa Impact is like we are talking about lighthouse place-based venture building or investing. We only back locals. And why it is important is today we are talking about a Mizoram which is close to $6 billion. $6 billion is a lot. Like we are talking like close to like 54,000 crore rupees or maybe 58,000 crore. How much it is going to locals? Like if you see yourself, like if somebody is making, let's say, 10 lakh rupees in a year, majority of money actually goes to outsiders, not to Mizoram people. You go to any of these shops in Mizoram, and that's what I was there yesterday, and like whenever I come, I have an exploratory thing. Anything which is branded, it's from outside. And which is not branded is local and less price, which is fair. That's the way it is there. But what if we say we have a branded thing coming from Mizoram and it is for the outside world? I'm not just talking about India. Mizoram has such a cool products which could be global. Like if I say today you are talking about ginger, if I take from the market, the ginger is priced, let's say, in the range of 25 to 50 rupees. The same thing, if I have a way of value adding, like local doing it, you are kind of spinning it off and saying that it is 500 rupees. The same thing, if you spin it off in a different way, you have shots which are coming in US. Like you go to any of these New York, Boston, or like Florida, everywhere, you get like ginger shots now. $5 shots and just 10 gram ginger. And ginger in like Mizoram is like great ginger. So what if we find these types of actual brand building thing? So Mizoram by itself, first of all, most of the Indians don't know where is Mizoram. So it's fine. If they don't know, let's first of all make it visible. And second is, Mizo people are like very proud of themselves, which is the first important thing. And I'll say that's a strength. Like Mizo people love to be Mizo. And that's the brand we are talking about. And it's a very cool, like, in a phonetic sense, it's a cool thing like Mizo. So if we are talking about that kind of a thing, and if you to think about Northeast, we are talking about 120 billion worth of like ecosystem. It's not a small ecosystem. And how many startups are there? The moment you come to Guwahati, you say, I've entered Northeast. No, you're not even like gone into the Northeast. You're just sitting in a city which is getting into development, and it's not developing at the same stage. And there are just 15, 20 startups in entire Assam. So if you kind of take away, let's say, the total 8 states, we should have had like hundreds of startups, but we don't have hundreds of startups. There are less than 25 startups which have got funded properly, the private investments. So Mizoram could easily lead it, and not just lead it as a startup capital of Northeast. I will say it should be the startup capital of sustainable business in the world. And that is something which we want to have. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so Mizoram.
Could I add one comment to that? I think one thing that I think is very important to your question of how does this become a thriving ecosystem? I think even before we answer that question, we have to ask ourselves, what is a thriving ecosystem and who gets to define that? And the work which I'm doing through Ahana Ventures, I grew up in the US, but what I have seen in the investing ecosystem is that what we've been taking is we talk about Bangalore, but let's zoom out. It's really a Silicon Valley, California-based model that we are in a very colonial way, just copy pasting and imposing on the rest of the world. So what I want to do is think about how do we redefine thriving? Now we can have entrepreneurs like Zomui and Felipe and Local who can thrive within a Silicon Valley structure. They were the first Mizoram-based company on Shark Tank, just recently, which is a huge deal. And at the same time, they're building their business in a very, very different way, right? With very, very different metrics. Me as an investor, for example, I don't ever have an entrepreneur pitch me. Because it's, I think it's degrading. I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years. I've had enough of being paraded around on stage and being grilled and being called to some, investors should be coming here. And if they're not, then they're missing an opportunity. They should be coming here, as Anuj said, to learn, about the opportunities that are here. And I think it's very, very important for Mizos, again, to own the strengths that you guys have and not allow anyone, any outsider or anybody else, to tell you that you don't have those strengths or that you need to just copy paste. We need to be more creative, I think, in defining what a good ecosystem is.
Caleb, I have to add, because my position as the manager of the ecosystem of the startup in Mizoram, I have to add. So,
of course, yeah. Please.
See, to create Mizoram or Aizawl as the hub of, you said the capital of startup hub, right?
In Northeast,
in Northeast, yes. We need to look at, first we need to identify the potential. That is the people, the founders. So we need to identify and build those people. Right now, they are mostly coming from the universities, the colleges, right? And we have to create a brand that these founders or these entrepreneurs, they have to believe that Aizawl is a place where they can grow. So that is the first important thing. And on top of that, we have to add, like we need to have a good incubation centers. We need to have stakeholders who can do funding, not only from the government. The government is only giving them grants, but the next growth, the big growth is coming from investors like Anuj and Sonali, right? So now we have to create that. Then we have to have a good policy. The government has to have a good policy, and infrastructure building. So all those things the government can have, because we can ask the government, the state government, as well as the central government. So we can build the infrastructure. But the most important thing is that the founders, the entrepreneurs, they have to believe that this is the place. So branding as well as delivering what we say is, I think, it is very important, because like in Gujarat, they have a problem. Zomoy and myself, we went there, I mean, a few weeks back. So their problem is that they built good startup, but they shifted to Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. They want to retain them. So we need to create good startup founders, as well as we need to attract them also and retain them. So if we can do that, I think we can become that startup capital in the Northeast.
100%. I'm going to be flying to Hyderabad in a couple of days. And I think that state has done such an excellent job of making it cool to build in Hyderabad, right? Even though it's so close to Bengaluru, a lot of founders actually choose to stay in Hyderabad, or they even come from outside just to build in Hyderabad. So I would love to see something similar happen here in Mizoram, and I think it probably will. I'm feeling very optimistic about this ecosystem. I just wanted to ask Mapui, if you had an answer to this question, what is it going to take for Mizoram to become a startup capital, the startup capital in Northeast India?
We have been introduced to entrepreneurship just a couple of decades back, like maybe 10 to 12 years back. So it's still very, the ecosystem is still very fragile. So right now, what we did, me as a part of a founder, what we try to do was that we tried to say that, okay, let's build the ecosystem wherein at least we take part of their problems away, like do a little bit of marketing for them, a little bit of sales for them. So we have this one fam card where we do marketing for the small entrepreneurs. Problem is that since it's still a very young and fragile system, the founders have to go through a lot. I mean, like they have to be A to Z to even survive. There's no lack of ideas over here. I've seen a lot of good ideas over here. We just need to have a system in place which support each other. I mean, like one person can take care of the sourcing. One company can take care of the manufacturing. One system can take care of logistics. Like those kind of systems support system has to be in place, and that is still lacking. Once that is intact, and it's not just, I'm not just talking about a government support on this one, because it has to support itself. I mean, like there has to be a PR company which do a great marketing for a product, a budding product, and there needs to be some logistics company who knows how to solve the local logistics problem. I'm like the logistics problem you've known. I'm like coming from outside, that it's very, very problematic, and every people coming here is, I think, underestimating the problem of logistics. So we have to solve that first. If we solve those things like step by step, I think if we go in the right path, it will come naturally, because we have a lot of talent here, and the opportunity here is still untapped. That's what.
Incredible. Yeah, it's that idea of during a gold rush, you want to actually sell shovels, right? Yeah. To the people who are trying to dig up the gold. And so if there's a gold rush happening here in Mizoram, founders can actually, instead of thinking about some cool new startup idea, why don't you build for the supply chain for the founders who are going to be building those ideas? And you'll never run out of business if you do that. Great answer to that question. I wanted to go back to you, Anuj, and ask you a new question here, which is that you've seen a lot of founders across Northeast. I wanted to know, what is just one, because everyone has to give an answer, one common pitfall or one common mistake that you see founders making that you would encourage people here in the audience to avoid while they're building their startup?
I think just one, if you ask me, is like, just like we have in our house, many times when the boys are primarily playing, we say, okay, don't worry, you can fall because it's fine, you're a boy. But when we have a girl child, we always say, oh, can we be cautious? And that kind of a condescending thing is something which is primarily here. Like, we should be comfortable having our entrepreneurs fail. What is failure? It's a learning. So entrepreneurship can only have two things: either they succeed, so called, in terms of the kind of wealth creation, or they will learn and do something else. So if they have that kind of thing where you don't have a mental stigma that they can try an entrepreneurship, but they can also not able to scale, but they can then do something else. That kind of a thing is very, very critical for as a society, for us to be having that kind of absorption or mental space to the safe space, if we put it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. In SF, in the California ecosystem, there's this idea of failing fast, right? Just fail. Build
Caleb,
something.
Can I
Yeah,
add on this
go-
one? I really want to answer this one.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah. The founders have to understand their society, their culture first. We should know that we are living in a society that is not a very pro business society. Very laid back, religious, and culturally socially very closed. And we have like our church services, our social responsibilities, the organizations, YMAs, and everything. And to founders have to find a balance between that professionalism and society, the culture responsibility. Because if founders go that way, or rather that way, you are too concentrated on the one or those two things. That is not very good for the local. I'm not talking about anywhere else. It's just for the local founders, because for your product to, or for your company to be recognized, you as a person have to be respected by the society, the society that you live in. But if you are too inclined towards those responsibilities, then the professionalisms decline. So those two things have to be balanced out. Very, very important. And that's the first pitfall. You can either build top down, be respectful on your companies and have a very great company and people respect you. And then you work your way down to the society. But that is for maybe a top 0.1% of the people. You have to work your bottom up. So in a society this close, then what we have to do is that we have to work together with the society. Now, the thing is that we have to break that stigma also. And we have to make a society which is more a pro-business, founder-friendly, and that will make it, I think, that will take away many of the problems that we're facing.
100%. I agree with you there. Sonali, do you have any pitfalls that you've seen founders making, or mistakes that you've seen them making?
Yes. So I will answer that, and I'll be quick. But before I answer that, I want to answer a different question, because I hear this question as a female founder, and also in rooms of Northeast and Indigenous founders. This question, I think, is over-asked. What are the pitfalls? What are the challenges? They're all important to acknowledge. But what about whenever I open an entrepreneur roundtable, the question I ask is, what are the strengths? And then what are the challenges? And I want to share what I see as the strengths and why I'm here and why I'm investing in this region. And one of the strengths is your ancestral wisdom that you have preserved. In a lot of India, we have just completely lost it. We have lost our connection with nature. The nature that you have. Zomui's business is a perfect example, and there are many others in this ecosystem of how you can leverage a nature-based business model. This is, again, it can't be copy-paste of Silicon Valley, because these regions have different strengths. The design aesthetic that you guys have, as you mentioned, the human capital, the connection. You guys have such a strong connection with your community. I went to visit farmers with Zomui. Those guys will do anything, to work with her. So that is a big strength, right? If I'm working in Delhi, my supplier has no loyalty to me, right? So I want to highlight that this is a very important question to ask. And it goes into my answer to your original question, which is also an important one. And I think that it's the pitfall that I see is that the founders that I'm working with are not getting out there and selling themselves as a founder enough, as boldly as they should be, without apologizing, but being we are different, and These are our strengths. And also just selling the product and not waiting to like make it perfect. You know, don't let perfect be enemy of good enough when you're building a startup. It's good enough. It's probably 10 times better than a lot of other things in the market. Just go out there, like, you know, and sell, you know? So that's the pitfall that I often see.
Okay. And Rinswal, do you have an answer there?
Yes. Okay. I can talk about the entrepreneurs here in the state only. So one of the pitfalls or the problem that they generally committed is that they want to move too fast, and when they come up with an idea, they want to build a business around it, and they look for financing. So they thought that funds and finance is the answer, but they generally do not look at or try to find out the problem that they are trying to solve. So they are trying to fit the solution, or they are trying to give the solution to the market, and they market that. So that is a very, very difficult thing. But when they have that, the best thing is they should try to find out what is the problem. And if the problem is, if many people are having that problem, so if they can give that solution, that means they're going to have a good market. So scalability is there. So if we are talking about the startup, so they do not have that kind of approach. They come up with an idea, they want to have funds and start a business. So they used to have a false start. So that is one part of failure, but then that costs a lot. Time, resources, and self-doubt and all those things there. So I think that is one problem, this pitfall that we faced here in Mizoram.
Yeah, I mean this concept of finding PMF, product market fit, before you go out and raise capital. I think this is something that perhaps doesn't happen as frequently here because it is very challenging. It's very expensive to get to PMF oftentimes. It depends on the idea, but that's usually where friends and family come in, right? You can raise a friends and family round just from people around you in your locality, in your Ving. And then I don't know if people ever raise money from like people in the church community. That could be another option too. But this actually leads me to my next question, which is, should founders in Mizoram be raising venture capital rather than looking at traditional financing options like raising debt, for example? I'm just going to leave that as an open-ended question, and maybe Rinswal, I'll ask you that question first because we were just talking about it.
I think they should, but it depends on the stage of the entrepreneur unit or the startup. If it's an early one, or if they are in the ideation stage, so if the idea is so good that it attracts the VC, then that's another thing. But generally, the ideation, the founders or the startup in the ideation stage here in Mizoram, they could not attract the VC. So I think they should go for government grants, family and friends, like that. So I think it all depends on the stage that they are in.
Yeah, and raising capital also means that you're diluting ownership in your business, right? Usually you're exchanging capital for equity. So it's something to be mindful of at the early stage.
And if they want to grow, there are many ways, but I think having a VC and because generally the VCs, the venture capitalists, they have networks. So if they really want to grow and if they're at that stage, I think they should go for it. But it all depends on the founders.
Yeah, sure.
For me, Caleb, it's more like the default answer is not that people should go for VC. It's more like for me, is your product a VC friendly, or your company the thing that you're trying to do a VC friendly? And most of the startups here is not, to be very honest, and we are not. See, bootstrapping is fine. I mean, like, we need a very patient capital for now. But for some people like Zomo, who's doing, that's another story. But for most of them, they should stick with their product, bootstrapping it as much as they can. And rather than going out, it's more like you need to build a structure or a system that can make your product work and can be scaled. Right now, we just need to be a little bit laid back and build something that can really, really scale in within ourselves, within the our market. That way, the whole thing can at least take off. Otherwise, without the proper system in place, that's the challenge will be 10x. So that doesn't mean that any company, some company cannot strive right now. It's just that if we're going to take the whole system as a one thing, there are a lot of things to do, and to do it right it might not take a lot of time also to solve those basic problems. That's how I see it. So VC later, bootstrap now.
Okay, VC later, bootstrap now. Sonali, you're backing incredible founders here in Mizoram. I wonder if you maybe have a different opinion, or
I do.
would love to hear your take.
Well, I would actually say that my answer to this question to any founders who are in the room or who are listening to this is the same answer that I would give to the US-based founders that I advise at Stanford and at MIT. It doesn't matter if it's Mizoram. Yes, there are challenges here. And yes, there are challenges in the United States right now, right? And so I think these are just different financial instruments, right? And I think that you guys should consider all of them. Depending on this, basically the answer is it depends, right? What is your ambition as a founder? What is your vision? What are you trying to build? What does success look like? The things I ask founders in my first conversation, instead of asking them to pitch me, is I ask questions. Where do you want to see yourself in 10 years? What is your metric of success? Is it to build the biggest chain of bakeries in Mizoram? Or is it to be on grocery store shelves in New York or Japan? Or is it something else, right? And then depending on that, you can finance with all of these mechanisms. You can raise grant funding to seed. You can bootstrap, and finance with your own profits. You need to raise working capital if you're a product company or, in many other businesses. And equity, I want to highlight because that's where I work. And the VC is not the only type of equity funding. As you mentioned, friends and family. Now, realistically, raising from your church group equity financing, difficult. I hope that will change. And I believe that it can change if we have more success stories out of Mizoram, and if local investors actually make profit. It will take some time, but I think that can happen. But equity, I want to highlight, is an important financial instrument of power. Okay, I can give a grant to someone, and most female entrepreneurs, most indigenous founders, if you look at the US, I was just telling that in the US, only 2% of VC dollars goes to female founders. Just let that sink in. That's in the US. In India, it's 0.5%. So we cannot only look at VCs. We need to look at angel investors. Even my fund is it's not a traditional VC at all, right? And so I think, but equity is a financial instrument of power. Why? Because it builds value in your enterprise. Yes, you're giving up a stake, but if you're giving it up in a way where you're not giving up too much, right? It's not exploitative. So you shouldn't be giving away 40% of your company, right? But if you're giving away a reasonable stake for a reasonable valuation, the good thing is that you're building wealth and you're building value. That's something that debt and grants cannot give you. However, those instruments have benefits, that you're not diluting yourself. So it really, really depends. And I'm happy to have conversations with founders after, because there are a lot of nuances around this.
Yeah, and I just have a follow-up question for you, actually. What are you looking for when you're talking to a founder? Who are the kinds of founders that you back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So similar to Anuj, I'm looking for founders who have the strength that they are rooted in their community. So I'm not looking at founders, even if someone like myself from the US or from Delhi or Bombay were to come to Mizoram and sit here for a month or a few years and want to start a startup, I'm not looking at that because I don't think that they have the strengths of the community roots and the access to resources and the respect for the environment. I'm an impact investor, so I don't just invest to make money. That is a core part of what I do, obviously. But I also look at what is the way that we want to change the world. How do I want to change the stories that we're telling? So I look for founders who have a very bold voice, who are not afraid to speak out. I also I find curiosity is a very important trait, and the ability to challenge authority. If I want to change the way the world is, I want to see a founder who's fearless enough to ask me questions, to challenge me. And that's something most investors don't want, but I feel like that is like a very important indicator of someone's resilience and their creativity. So these are some of the things I look for, among many others.
Okay. Over to you, Anuj. I wanted to know, should Mizoram founders be raising venture capital?
First of all, we as LCC Impact has world's largest collective of indigenous founders in the world, Sikkim. And one of the things which we are actually saying, and I'll be very honest, is we have a sense of urgency right now. Mizoram is sitting on the sense of urgency. Leave out all these founder thing and other things. I'll give you a very simple thing. Sikkim, few decades back, felt like, okay, we need to create jobs, we need to increase our economy and other things. And they invited corporates. The corporates who said, okay, we'll set up pharma companies. But why should we set up a pharma company? Give us tax deductions, give us free land, give us other things, and we'll give you jobs. And 2 decades later, they got all the perks, and they get entire taxation rebate for shipping the products from Sikkim to anywhere in the world. But not a single senior people are from Sikkim in that entire pharma companies and multiple others. And what Sikkim got? Polluted water, land which has been given to corporates free, and most of the people who are working in that corporate is from outside. And what is economic benefit? People are debating. What is the social benefit? What is the environmental benefit? It's all negative. I'm saying this is going to happen here soon. So either we wait for it, or some of us say, okay, let's build for Mizoram, build for our next generation. And that's the urgency I'm talking about for indigenous people. Because 90% of the natural resources of the world, biodiversity, is primarily custodian of that is indigenous people. They are the specialists. So if we don't build the brands for ourselves, somebody else is going to destroy it. So are you waiting for it, or we build for ourselves? So that's what I'm just trying to. So I'm not talking about VCs or other things. I'm saying let's build a brand for global resonance. It doesn't matter. Like in Switzerland, you're talking about some kind of a small watch. Now anything which is handmade in Switzerland is big brand. But the moment you say handmade in Northeast, it's costing less. Why? Because it's a branding and perception problem. Let's go and change it. And not change just in Mizoram. Let's go to Bombay, Delhi, New York, Paris. Talk about Mizoram in a bigger way. That look, you need us more than we needing you. And I'm just telling you, like, we don't need cement plants, mining and other things. We need more holistic solutions. I'm not saying either or, but it's very important at this moment of time. We need to be clear about what is our growth models are, what is our choices are, and whatever the lifestyle need to be there, so that after 10 years, 20 years, when we look back, we see Mizoram as healthy state. Like Bangalore, which you are coming from, you just see the heat index of the city is increasing. There's no water. Yeah, absolutely. And it is like the city is kind of drying up. The only thing which the city, are like the people, the locals are actually frustrated about how many outsiders there. What they are seeing is like what the benefit we got overall. Like as Bangalore or nearby cities, the entire chain nearby Bangalore, the farmhouses are built. Agricultural land has been purchased by tech people who don't know agriculture. You know, the same people from whom they purchase the agricultural land, they're asking them to become laborer in their own land. Do we need that kind of thing? I don't think so. We need to stand for it. And that's what we are trying to talk about. Like, let's just make it bootstraps. And in that, when you raise an investment, mind you, that's the only time when the media, the mainland media covers you properly. Otherwise, what they say, you are exotic. Exotic means you are not useful for any kind of scale-up thing. I don't want that. I'm saying we are much more better than you. We'll give you a better ROI. Let's talk serious business. When local raise money, we bribe the media to get their feature done. But then that was the first time. After that, you see the mainland, like why they will be covering you seriously if you are not scalable. So let's just be as brutal in terms of talking about the narrative of scale up as we are having. Now, and that is also the thing, like otherwise what will happen is we say Tesla, this guy is the richest guy. And the moment if suppose Elon Musk comes here, just imagine the kind of reception he will get. Why not Zomoe? Why not other entrepreneurs? You want the equal kind of treatment. They are building for the world. And that's why like we need to have a very clear thing. I don't want to have a kind of a charity mindset for, let's say, some kind of a Mizoram kind of thing. We are saying we are equally good and need to be visible in global world. And that's that small dream for indigenous people we have.
See, we talk about women representation on the global scale or national scale, but coming to Mizoram, most of the entrepreneurs who are doing kind of good, even in the national level, are all female. Like Zomo is here, and a friend of mine, Hannah, is there. She's a designer, Hannah Kyante, and Nora Kande coming up with coffees. If you see those patterns, I mean, like the environment here in Mizoram is like it's very open, and it gives equal opportunity for male, female. Doesn't care, just care about the creativity and how you know how much you want to make it big. So the opportunity that the state itself provide is something that we can like started to sell. When you want to present, Mizoram in the national scale, the maybe global scale, you just have to brand it first. Brand it first that this is a place where you have this or that, and then you can just scale it up from there. So I think in some way we are in the right path, but a lot of things to do. I don't know about the urgency that he talks about, how urgent it is, but we cannot just slow down.
Let's speed things up. And speaking about going global, or even going pan-India for that matter, as you said, branding is one really important part of that. Sonali, I wanted to know from you, because you've sort of seen this journey on your side, right? What are some other techniques, other tricks that local brands here in Mizoram can use to actually become popular, not just in India, but abroad as well? What does it take to pull that off?
I think one of the important things is actually to go out there and be in the market. Because then, I mean, you'll bring all of the strengths and knowledge that you've developed being here. But if you go and, let's say, spend 3 months in Bangalore, and just, like, let's say, for example, you're a food product, right? Go into every single grocery store that you walk past and observe, like, what is your competition? What are the price points? Get ideas for branding. Like one of the Ladakhi startups that I raised, the founder, that I invested in, and Anuj backed, one of the first companies in Ladakh to raise equity funding. He had never been to Mumbai, right? And so how will he brand for that market or sell in Mumbai without being there? Just like how will I invest in Ladakh without going and spending significant time? It goes both ways, right? So he came and stayed at our house, and we went on a grocery store tour because he was a food company. And we took photos, we bought actual products so that he could take notes and show that to his packaging partner, and then also adapt it. So it's not, again, I never promote a copy-paste mentality. But it's good to get exposed to different markets as much as you can, and take baby steps, but source different ideas, and then bring your own creative twist, because I see a lot of creativity in this market. So you may choose to work with a branding agency that's local, but then you get some different ideas from your travels in other markets. So I think kind of a hybrid approach works best.
Caleb, I want to add here. So there's one challenge. One of the challenges in marketing and branding oneself is that the founders they have to align with the investors like Anuj, Sonali, and also because the investors, they want something, right? Because she's looking for something, Anuj is looking for something, then some other angel investors or a VC firm, they look for something. So a founder has to align, or they have to know that this is what the investors want. But then the challenge is that what Anuj is saying and what we are saying, that we should not lose our roots, the uniqueness. So that is a challenge that the Mizo founders, they have to struggle with. They have to be able to develop that, because you should not lose that root or the uniqueness that you want to protect. Because, I mean, coming back to the first question that you asked, do you want to be startup capital of Northeast India? Similar to Bangalore or Telangana. But we have to be that startup capital with our own kind of thing. We have to brand ourselves, right? So we do not want to be another Bangalore or Telangana or Mumbai, but we want to be ourselves. But that is also producing good founders, good startup. So that challenge is that when you align yourself with the world, the global or pan-India or to investors, you should be able to define yourself and keep that root. I think that is very, very important.
Incredible. Zomoy, how are we doing for time? I think it's 4 o'clock now. Do we have 5-10 minutes for a Q&A? 5 minutes, okay. Does anyone in the audience here have any questions about any of the topics that we've discussed so far?
Thank you. My name is Isak. I've got one question for each of you. So first of all, for Mr. Mapuya, the first question that I have is, what is one startup idea from Mizoram that you believe could become nationally recognized within 5 years? That's the one question that I have for him. And then for Ms. Sonali, in your experience, what makes investor trust a young founder early on? And for Mr. Rinzwala, do you think Mizoram biggest challenge is like lack of funding, or lack of market access, or lack of execution? And then for Mr. Caleb, what local problems in Mizoram do you think young people are still ignoring, even though it has huge business potential? So those are the questions. The last question is for Mr. Anuj, but I will skip this one.
Okay. Sorry, Anuj. But yeah, for everyone else, if we can just try to keep our answers short and tight, because there was one other question as well, and we'll definitely get to you. Yeah, you can go first.
Oh yeah, that's a very, very difficult question. But for me, we have to look at the strength that we have right now. The industry, the strongest industry I think that we have right now is the fashion industry. So if someone's gonna make it back, I think it will be that from that company. I mean, like yeah, locally there. But see, the thing is that fashion and all, it attracts media.
Sure.
A lot. So that with that advantage, I think some of the bigger ones will be from those industry.
Okay. Sonali?
What makes me trust a young founder, or I think I've seen a lot of investors, relationships. So if you're a young founder listening to this, for example, if Zomui or one of my other portfolio founders refers another founder to me, I'm more likely to trust them. So in an age of AI where anyone can draft an amazing email or a LinkedIn message to me, I get inundated with a lot of great text, you can have your whole pitch deck made by Claude, right? But then that doesn't stand out anymore. But what stands out is human connection and relationships. So I would say really invest in building those authentic, deep relationships. That's what makes investors trust you.
Yeah, Rinzwala?
Okay. You asked me 3 points, right? The first, what do we lack? Funds? No. Market? No. And the third?
Execution.
Execution? No. What we lack is that we do not dream big enough. Okay? The founders, the entrepreneurs, we have to dream big.
The answer to your question, sorry, do you mind repeating it again? Local problems that people are ignoring. I often think very, very differently about looking at things from a different scale. Local problems are one thing, and I think in many ways entrepreneurs are solving a lot of local problems. But I think that there is potential to build from Mizoram for the world. Maybe not a physical product, but maybe something online, right? There's access to compute. If someone were to start an AI company in Aizu, for example, like India AI mission is there. They're giving people access to compute. That's one of the primary constraints that AI companies in India face. But if you just apply for India AI mission and your vision is big enough, you might gain access to a bunch of free compute. And then you could actually build a global scale AI company from Mizoram. I've seen a number of different companies in Northeast. Like there's a company called Vantage Circle. They're very, very big and they're building from Northeast. Chili Breeze is another company that has done great work and now they're expanding. They have an office in Aizawl as well. I'd love to see Mizo founders thinking globally from day one when they're building their company, when they're building their startup. So I didn't really answer your question, but I took it in my own direction. And then you had a question as well. Go for it.
My name is Kos and I'm a designer and I have been working with different local brands like maybe Uzomo is local too and then Norakan, which Pumapuya mentioned earlier. They are like founders who take great pride in their marketing and then packaging quality, and they've been doing quite well. But on the other hand, I also know some local startups who doesn't give a shit about their packaging or maybe their marketing brand identity and have been doing quite well too. So my question is, how much importance should a founder or a company give to their branding identity, marketing, or maybe packaging? Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anyone feel strongly about this?
I mean, it's my usual answer of it depends. And I also want to highlight that we're talking a lot about going global, going pan-India, but there are some brands like, for example, La Par. They're doing like amazing revenue. There's a store is sold out, like, and they're just looking locally right now. Now they may or may not scale, but there's also business models that can scale amazingly locally, can spread by word of mouth. It can be very successful even without a website and just be selling on Instagram. And that can be even a higher revenue business, you know. So I think we don't have to follow any particular model. We can go local to local. We can, branding and positioning, I would say, is very important when you are trying to position as a luxury product. So the brand that I built called Mela Artisans, the first startup that I built in the US, branding was critical because I needed to sell in Bergdorf Goodman, the most luxurious, so-called most luxurious designer store in the world. We were selling one box for $1,000. Okay, so like the customer needs to feel like this is luxury. So the branding and packaging is very important. I spent subsequent like 6-7 years in fintech, building a B2B SaaS platform. My clients were major banks like Axis Bank, Ujjivan Small Finance Bank. Branding was not important. It was more like, you know, like the product. The product had to do well, and it was more of like a back end. It was more about what's the quality of the integration with their core banking solution. So again, it really, like, it depends on what your product is and who your customer is.
Yeah, Mapui?
Just want to add. The question is, what is the success that how do you define success for yourself? That will be I think that will be the first question that you should ask when you talk about branding as well. Because if you say that XYZ amount of revenue is good enough, you settle with that, then it's quite good. I'm like, you'll do quite okay for yourself maybe. But if you're talking about a scalable product and going big, I think branding and marketing is the key to that. Of course, I mean, like you cannot just ignore the quality of the product itself, but it's about how big you dream your product to be. And without branding and marketing, it's not going to go anywhere. I think that's the fundamental truth in the scaling up a company, a product. And right now in Mizoram, most of the people I know, except for a few, 1-2 people, they don't know how to scale. And most of the things that we do inside the state, it's not very scalable friendly the way we approach it. It's not that the product or the company are scalable. It's just that the way we approached it is there have been so many problems with that. So the question should be more like how big do we want to go? Just like Pumazwa said.
I'll just briefly answer your question too. I think design is very important and people should pay more attention to it. I think there are a lot of startups, not just here, but across India that maybe haven't paid enough attention to the little details, right? Because when you pay attention to the little details, it connects with people. There's a company, I believe they're based in Mumbai, but they've spread across all the metros in India called Subco. Subco makes coffee. They also make excellent chocolate. I would encourage you to go and look at that brand. It's exceptional. The attention to detail is amazing. Another one is Project Coffee, QAAFI. Amazing company as well. Pay attention to them and their branding. Local is another company. That's why Local stood out to me when I was looking at Mizoram startups. Before I had ever come to Mizoram, I knew about Local because of the branding. The vibe that it gives you when you go on the website, when you go on their Instagram, when you experience the product in your hand, it's like they've thought about every single detail. Norakan is another one as well. So I think there's a lot of Mizoram startups that are doing an excellent job on the branding, and I just want to see more of that. Okay, I think that's probably all the time we have for. Thank you all for coming out. It's been an amazing conversation. I really hope that the audience learned things from this conversation too, and hopefully got inspired. I think that there were some parts of this conversation that were quite inspiring and motivational, not in the sort of cliche sense, but genuinely encouraging people to feel a sense of urgency and a sense that big things can happen here in Mizoram. Okay, thank you so much. Yes.
So like Mizoram people have like infectious energy, like cool people.
Yeah.
So Mizoram cool, like if I say like it's really amazing, please preserve it. It's some say amazing magic thing you all have. Thank you.